Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the What's in the Pod podcast. As always, I am joined by my brother, Michael. Go ahead, say hi.
Did we start it?
Yes, we did. What do I do with my
So,
hands?
that was the first one. That joke has passed.
Yeah. Well, I have to re-listen to these when I edit around with them. That they all sort of mesh together at one point, and I can't remember what's real and what's fake anymore. It's like my whole life is a lie. But anyways, today we're going to be talking about films by a filmmaker that arguably references more movies than any other filmmaker in history. If you go through the list of his movies in the references in imdb.com, you'll notice that each one of his movies has at least 100 or 150 or more references each. That man is the one, the only, Mr. Quentin Tarantino.
QT for short.
Did you just call him a cutie?
Yes, I did.
That's kind of weird because he's probably one of the ugliest people to ever live.
That's so mean.
He's up there with Steve Buscemi.
Oh my god.
Did you not see him in Django Unchained? He's a weird
I
looking
did.
dude.
That was makeup.
He's a weird looking dude with a foot fetish.
He does have a foot fetish.
Those
That is
things,
very true.
they just don't go together. But he makes one heck of a movie. And let's just jump in there with his classic film and probably his shortest film, Reservoir Dogs.
Very tough to spell, very easy to watch.
It's not that tough to spell. Although I always forget the R in the middle of it. Reserve.
Well, I think that makes it tough.
Your face is tough. Ooh.
Ooh. Yeah, this movie is only an hour and 39 minutes long. That's pretty short.
Yeah, I think it's his
That's-
shortest film because most of his movies after this started going up to like 2.5 hours each, except for Kill Bill. And it's one of those movies that just it flows really quickly. Like you start watching it and they start off with the dinner scene, and all of a sudden you're just thrown into the heist and everything, and thrown into the middle of everything that's going on, and then all of a sudden you're at the end with the big shootout. And then
Yeah, I would say, much
Pete
unlike
stealing
this
everything.
podcast, this movie is no nonsense. Gets
Yeah.
right to the point. Gets it done.
it hooks you really quick too because right when we see that Tim Roth's character's like shot in the stomach, and they're kind of establishing the relationship with him and Harvey Keitel, and you kind of find out that the whole movie's kind of a whodunit, like who's the rat, who's the snitch. Like it just grabs you really quick, and yeah, like you said, it just flows really nicely, unlike this podcast.
That's very true. Very, very accurate
Which I think
statement.
is kind of a rude thing to say about our own podcast, but it's your opinion, so you do you, boo.
What? Oh my god. Anyways, yeah, this movie is pretty awesome. I'm sure everybody in the world has already seen it, so there's not much more to talk about. But yeah, it's one of the.
Well, he's
the
Mr.
first...
Blue, he's Mr. Orange, and you're Mr. Pink.
No, you're not Mr. Black. That's somebody on another job.
Quit complaining. It's easy for you to say you're Mr. White. That's a cool sounding name.
There's no trading. You're Mr. Pink. Anyways, yeah. I think the thing that catches people's attention inadvertently the most in Quentin Tarantino's movies, and it's definitely showcased in this one, is his dialogue is always just so fluent. And that's why he gets nominated for Best Original Screenplay like all the time, or adapted screenplay like all the time, because
No,
the way that
he never adapted a screenplay. They're all originals.
he's all original. Okay. But yeah, it's the way that he writes dialogue, I think, is one of the biggest things that catches my attention in all of his movies, because it immerses you in the conversation, because it feels like it's actually happening.
When they
There's
feel like
no
they feel
weird
like
pauses or stuff that doesn't make sense. And
yeah, and they all feel like unique and personable characters. Like every character that he writes seems like they have a past, and they want something in their future. Like they're very, very distinct in who they are. And he's really good at creating just, for lack of a better word, just badass people. Who
Yeah.
just, you know,
Except
they.
for except for maybe Mr. Blue.
What's wrong with
Guy
Mr. Blue?
he didn't do anything. He just kind of sat there and like looked old.
Yeah, but you could tell that dude had a history. You could just
History.
kind of tell by him just being there that it's like, oh, this guy, he's got something interesting. Other than he didn't he die?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he got killed off screen, I believe.
Yeah. The only person who really got killed on screen during the heist was Tarantino, Mr. Brown. Mr. Shit.
Mr. Shit.
But
It's easy for you to say I'm Mr. Shit.
I think one of my favorite pieces of dialogue in this movie is the opening scene when they're talking about tipping. And
Yes.
Mr. Pink's just kind of like discussing why he doesn't think that he thinks it's wrong that society has to put people in the position where they need tips for a job, but he doesn't feel like it's his right or his purpose to put in a tip. And then the other character walks up, he's like, "Who's short? Somebody didn't tip." They're like, "Oh, it's Mr. Pink. He doesn't tip." "What do you mean you don't tip?" "I just don't." He's like, "Hey,
Well, yeah, and then Tim Roth starts answering all the questions, and then
Yeah.
Lawrence Tierney's like, "Would you shut the fuck up?" Yeah, the whole diner scene I thought was great because it's just, again, it kind of it starts out the movie. You have no idea what the hell's going on, but it's just, engaging conversation that is talked about in movie criteria for ages.
yeah," and it's making you like the characters even though they're anti-heroes. And you're
Yes.
about to see them torture cops and go on a bank robbery and shoot civilians and all that shit.
And cut people's ears off.
Yeah, torturing cops. I like when he cuts off the ear and he tries to talk to it.
He does.
I heard that was like improvised just on the spot. He was just like, "I'm going to talk to the ear." And I'm seeing here that they're making the connection with Clockwork Orange. The scene when they're doing Singing in the Rain and they're raping the woman. And how they're kind of using like that kind of type of music that you wouldn't expect to be put over a torture scene. And using it as a way to juxtapose what's going on. And it makes that song stick in your head for a different reason now.
I want to say there's something about that song choice, though, that maybe Michael Madsen decided that that's what it had to be, or he needed something lighthearted, because I think I remember reading somewhere that he actually didn't, want to do the torture scene because he actually doesn't like violence. I don't remember where I heard that, but I know I definitely heard it somewhere. I thought it was kind of interesting to see how, again, how believable that situation was and how great Michael Madsen was in the scene, but it's like, he didn't want to do it.
That's kind of interesting. I haven't heard that. And it's kind of funny that a guy who is in a shit ton of extremely violent movies is against violence.
Yep.
It's kind of like when Jim Carrey was in the movie Kick-Ass 2. And then he decided to not go to the premieres because he was like,
He
this
didn't like
movie's...
guns.
Yeah, he's like, this movie was too violent. I don't regret being in it, but I'm not going to support it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, a matter of opinion. If that's, you change your mind about it, something like that, I understand. I can see where they're coming from. But, again, I think it's just cool to, see somebody get so immersed in their character that even though they don't, whatever he has against whatever that was going on, he still made it believable. And I think he's one of, the most underrated actors in all of Hollywood.
Oh, dude's great.
Ever. He's amazing.
One of the best examples. I actually rewatched it this morning of
Is
people.
it Cobra Gator?
No, better. Of people protesting their own movies or kind of being against it was when Dogma came out and Kevin Smith was on the local news protesting his own movie. That is still, to this day, one of the greatest things ever. Of people protesting their own art.
That dude got a little silly, though.
That was great. He's just standing out there and they interview him. They're like, and this man, who won't admit it, but he looks and sounds a lot like the movie's director, Kevin Smith, had this to say. So why are you against the movie? Oh, I don't know. I just heard that it represents something really bad. I'm not sure what it is, but I heard it's not good.
He's he definitely has a very interesting sense of humor.
It's great. It's great. It's genius. But what's even more genius is Tarantino's second film, the one that really put him on the map because it got nominated for like 30 Oscars. They had to add more categories just for Samuel L. Jackson's performance. And that movie is Pulp Fiction, which I think might be the first movie of his that. No, it was Kill Bill. Well, this was probably the second one. But for the longest time, this was probably my favorite because it's just a perfect movie. It's hard not to like it. If somebody tells me that they don't like Pulp Fiction, I don't trust that person's taste in movies at all.
Yeah, it's just one of those kind of all around movies that it doesn't. It's just it's so cool to see all of the stories kind of come together and how you see certain characters cross over in the different chapters and stuff like that. But it's one of those movies that, if you've never seen Reservoir Dogs and you don't understand Quentin Tarantino's like film style, the way that he, goes in and out of timelines and stuff like that, it can get kind of confusing. But that's why the movie's so great.
Yeah, I was actually watching it on TV once, and I like jumped into the middle of it, and I think they messed up the time. So the ending of the movie was on, but it said that the movie had 2 hours to go, and I was like, wait, did they make a chronological cut of Pulp Fiction just to put it on TV and make it more accessible to viewers?
Oh, that would be stupid.
That would be really stupid. But imagine watching it in chronological order.
I would think it'd probably still be watchable, but I don't know if it would have the same
impact.
Like, yeah, it definitely wouldn't be the same movie.
Well, yeah, because by the end of the movie, you know that Vincent Vega's dead, or he gets killed.
Yeah.
John Travolta's character. But he's still sitting in that diner scene, and Samuel Jackson's talking about going on his journey and how he's going to give up the violent lifestyle and kind of find himself and all that. And he's telling Vincent that, like, hey, you need to take this path with me or look to change your life. Otherwise, things are going to go crappily for you. And sure enough, he gets shot up.
He does.
He does. But I think the best part of the diner scene is one of my most quoted lines from this movie. And that's when Samuel Jackson is talking about how everybody needs to be cool like Fonzie. And he's like, and what's Fonzie like? Cool. Correctamundo. That's one of my favorite lines from this movie. I was going to send it to you this morning because I knew we were doing the podcast. Just a 2-second clip of him saying, Correctamundo.
Correctamundo. But and that part is great, but I think my favorite part of the movie is when they're in the apartment with all those kids and stuff like that, and they're getting the briefcase, and just the way that Samuel L. Jackson just kind of commands the room with the way he talks, and obviously the infamous "Say what again? Say do they speak English in what?" I just
say what? I dare you! I double dog dare you, motherfucker!
Every day that sequence, and still laugh, still smile, and just love it every single time for the rest of my life. It's so perfect. But again, it gets back to that like pure dialogue that in that situation, I could see that exact scenario playing out. Somebody stumbling through words, a badass motherfucker telling him, hey, you better stop doing that because it's kind of pissing me off. And then he's going to shoot the dude on the couch, scare the Jesus out of the guy with the big kahuna burger. That is a tasty burger.
That's that Hawaiian burger joint, isn't it?
Oh, may I try one of your burgers?
So I was in Spanish class in high school, and one of my teachers, he was really into movies, so I got him into like watching some Korean films and some Japanese movies. But I kind of used it as a way to not have to learn Spanish very well. So I would kind of do things like we'd be talking about like flying on vacation. So you have to get in a plane and then you go to the vacation spot. And I would say, yeah, I would get on a plane and watch a movie while on vacation. He would just be like, "What movie did you watch?" So I knew how to say everything about movies in Spanish. And we had to make a menu for a restaurant or some shit like that. And I did the Big Kahuna Burger, and I wrote it all out in Spanish. And I had the tagline like "that Hawaiian burger joint" and all that, just to kind of pay homage to the movie and get an easy A, so I didn't actually have to learn.
Nice.
Because I was a lazy student. And the only Spanish I know now is correctamundo. But I'm not even sure that's actually Spanish.
That sounds legit.
But the other scene I really like in this is when they accidentally shoot the dude from Mad TV in the head.
Yeah, poor Phil Lamar.
Yeah. Just having a casual conversation. He's like, the gun went off.
Yeah, and then it's like that freak out sort of factor, like, what the fuck just happened? But not only the characters, like, I remember watching that for the first time and just being like, what? Like, that had to be an accident. Like, that shit was not planned.
Like, whoops. The Harvey Keitel character, the wolf, Dad was asking me about him one time. He's like, what's that character's name from Pulp Fiction who shows up and always gets the job done really quick? I was like, the wolf? And he's like, that's right, the Harvey Keitel guy, the wolf. And I was like, why? And he's like, because I'm going to have a conversation tomorrow and I want to be able to use it as a joke. I was like, you're really planning your conversations for tomorrow?
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
A little bit. I thought it was kind of funny.
A little bit.
Do you know what else is really weird? That
Quentin Tarantino in this movie.
Besides
Even
that,
though his character was pretty funny, they just fucking come over to his house and start cleaning up Phil Lamar.
I know how good my coffee is. I don't need you to tell me how good my coffee is. Because I know how good it is because I bought my fucking coffee. Oh, where was I going with that?
Not sure. You were talking about somebody planning their conversations and then I interrupted you. You were probably getting to the point that Ving Rhames is a badass.
No, besides that. We always forget that Brad has a part in these as well. So we have another brother from the same mother named Brad. And he can't join us, but he sends in all of his reviews. And he sent in his review for Reservoir Dogs, and he gave it a 10 out of 10. And he said, this is a classic film full of great characters. Cool.
Very nice.
Yeah. But yeah, the Ving Rhames character and the, why can I not think of his name? Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis' character.
Willie Bruce.
Yeah, that whole storyline. I like how he's trying to run away from him and leave town, or kind of avoid him and all that. And he ends up running into him in the middle of the road. And Ving Rhames just drops everything. He's like,
he's got like,
motherfucker.
Dude, he's carrying like cupcakes or something like that. He's got like a box or something. He's just like, motherfucker.
He just runs him down. And then all the pedestrians are trying to help him, Bruce Willis with his broken nose. And they're like, is Ving Rhames dead? And then he gets up and just shoots some lady in the leg.
She gets shot in the leg and everybody else scatters.
They're like, oh shit.
Yeah, that was kind of funny because Bruce Willis has to go back and get his ass watch because his girlfriend forgot it or something like that. It was on the kangaroo, and then he comes back to his house and he's like, "Yeah, nobody seems to be here. I'm gonna have some fucking Pop-Tarts." And then he sees that giant ass gun, like, "Oh, hey, I totally didn't see that the first time I walked into the fucking kitchen. I had to get my Pop-Tarts first." And then John Travolta comes out from pooping and he gets shot. Couple, like, 90 times.
Yeah, what a shitty way to go. Pun intended.
Yeah, Travolta goes to the bathroom and comes out of the bathroom multiple times, and every time he comes out, somebody ends up dead or dying.
And that was the day he became a Scientologist with Tom Cruise.
Oh my god.
He was like, from this day forth, I'm gonna believe in space aliens.
Don't we all?
But anyways, classic film.
Very, very good film.
I love the dialogue in the opening scene The whole Tim Roth and
Bunny, Honey Bunny,
yeah, but what's the actress's name? Amanda
Amanda
Plummer.
Plummer.
Yeah, Honey Bunny and Pumpkin, and they're just kind of like talking to each other all sweetly, and they're like, yeah, but how's the best way to rob a place? Because you don't want to rob a bank, because bank has security. You got to rob a place that doesn't see it coming. How about we rob this diner right here, right now? Sounds good to me. Let's do it. And none of you fucking move. This is a robbery. And then, but boom, we go into that credit sequence. It's like that opening scene's just badass. I love it.
It is. And then it comes back to it, and we get to see the rest of it. And then he takes his bad motherfucker wallet back out of the little bag. But he puts his cash in, because he's a nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah. But he's paying for his life. He's not
and
letting him
then
take
everybody goes home happy.
it. The end. Except for Vincent Vega, because he dies.
He does that.
I like the manager or whatever during the diner scene when he's telling Samuel Jackson not to be a hero. He's like, don't be a hero. He's like, shut up, fat man. This doesn't concern you.
Doesn't concern you.
Oh,
good flick.
But
All
anyways,
around good flick. Only got one Oscar win, but it was definitely nominated for a whole crap ton.
Yeah, I got
a lot of actors and stuff like that.
It just won for screenplay, but got nominated for like every single other category possible.
I don't know about every category, but it's definitely up there.
Pretty sure it's pretty close. But it looks like Brad gave it a 10 out of 10.
Huh.
And he says, it's great, but it glamorizes heroin too much. Okay. At least he liked it. I don't know what the rest of that means.
That's true.
But since we're going on to the next movie, which I think is one of the more underrated Tarantino films, Jackie Brown.
The most underrated?
It's debatable.
I don't really think it is. It's the only one that people never talk about.
Yeah, it is.
Except for Death Proof.
It is
Death Proof
probably
is not better than Jackie Brown.
Yeah, it is probably really underrated. But there is a theory that Samuel Jackson's character from Pulp Fiction went on to like kind of travel a little bit, and it didn't really work out. He couldn't stay away from the violent lifestyle, and he is actually the character in Jackie Brown. The Ordell Robbie.
I could see that being a thing because he's kind of got that same attitude, but he's much more relaxed and mellow.
Yeah.
That possibly it's like, hey, when he was going out and about, maybe it calmed him down a little bit. But my favorite character in this movie is Sid Haig, as he plays the judge.
Buddy. Did you know that Sid Haig and Pam Grier used to do a bunch of movies for Jack Hill back in the day? Like,
I did not know that.
Spacing on the name. They're like the women in prison films. The Big Birdcage and stuff like that. But this was the first time that they got reunited in a film in I think it was 20 or 30 years. Was coming back and doing Jackie Brown. And Tarantino, being the huge movie nerd that he is, obviously he did that on purpose. Because he always references movies in the past by people like Jack Hill, and he put Pam Grier in the movie because he loved movies like Coffee and Foxy Brown and all that, which were
that
great
definitely makes sense. The Big Bird Cage with Pam Grier and Sid Haig, and Sid Haig plays a character named Django.
Django. The D is silent.
And the tagline for this movie is, "Women so hot with desire, they melt the chains that enslave them."
Yeah. Oh, Big Dollhouse is the other one I was thinking of.
This looks awful.
Yeah, Big Dollhouse is another one. But there's a documentary about it, about all the movies that they made in the Philippines and stuff like that, because they would just keep cranking them out because it was so cheap to make them. But a lot of the Jack Hill movies that were popular at the time, like Big Dollhouse and The Big Birdcage, which both have Sid Haig and Pam Grier, are just like these women in prison type of films that were obviously meant for just exploitation and making a quick buck. But people with foot fetishes like Quentin Tarantino love him so much that he references him to this day in his films. But there is one that that's really good that Jack Hill did. I haven't seen too many of his movies, but Spider Baby is actually a really dope film. Pam Grier's not in that one, but that has Sid Haig in it, and that's a really dope movie. And I highly recommend checking it out.
Spider Baby or The Maddest Story Ever Told.
Yeah. I just call it Spider Baby, because the rest of it is bullshit. It's a pretty dope movie, though. But not as dope as Jackie Brown. And the thing that I really love about Jackie Brown is that
when Chris Tucker dies.
No, that was the sad. That made me cry.
What?
But,
that dude is straight up annoying.
In this movie, maybe.
Yes, that's true.
He was probably my favorite part of the Fifth Element, though.
Yes, Ruby Red. But anyways.
But the opening scene with the Bobby Womack song, 110th Street. Come down 110th Street. I love that fucking song. And when I was watching the movie, I actually paused it to listen to that song like 3 or 4 times. Because it's just
that's another thing we haven't quite touched on much. But the soundtracks in all of his movies are just downright fantastic. Like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, like all of his song choices, because Quentin Tarantino, as much as he loves movies, I believe he loves music just as much, because he puts so much thought into that part of the movies as well, that anytime you think that there should be, or anytime that there's like not dialogue going on, it always seems like there's a catchy sort of, song that seems out of place, but just brings everything together.
Yeah, because all of his uses of music are kind of uses characters. He doesn't really repeat songs, and the only movie that he ever actually had a score for is The Hateful Eight. Everything else he just pulled from other movies, and a lot of them, like we're going to get to in Django Unchained, I have a great story about one of the songs he took from Battle Royale. He uses them as like ways to give credit to the movies that he's trying to reference, the era that he's trying to portray, which for Jackie Brown is like 70s style movies with like Pam Grier and all that, like I said before. And yeah, he uses the music as character pieces to make things flow, but also to enhance who each of these characters are, which I think is always kind of cool. Yeah. I think I rambled a little bit there. I got lost myself.
You're good. I wrote down as my favorite part in this movie is when Robert De Niro's character leaves the mall and then he gets lost in a parking lot, because that was downright hilarious.
I love his character. Oh, hold on.
Is like just poking the bear. Oh, you don't know where we
parked?
Hold on,
I'm gonna get to that.
Where did we park, dumbass? Did you forget where we parked? He just turns around and fucking shoots her. Boom.
Damn it. That was in my notes. Their character dynamic. I can't remember their characters' names. But the dynamic between De Niro and the girl, when they first meet, she's telling like a story about how she was in Japan, and then she goes, "Wanna fuck?" And then 3 minutes later, they're done. And then it goes all the way to the parking lot, like you were talking about, where De Niro's just like, "I can't stand her. You better not keep poking me. I'm getting really mad." Shoots her. And then he has to explain it to Samuel Jackson. He's like, "Well, she was making me mad, so I shot her." You shot her? You couldn't just like hit her? You had to kill her?
You don't understand. You weren't there.
I guess if you had to do it, you had to do it.
It's like he wasn't even that mad.
Yeah, he's just like, "Oh, shit happens." He gets more mad because he thinks that they may have been ripping him off, stealing the money and everything.
Yeah.
He's just like, "I don't give a shit about her." Well, one of my notes that I wrote down was that Samuel Jackson's hair gets crazier than Bill Murray's at the end of Kingpin.
I
Because
don't
when
know if it quite gets that
it
crazy.
gets pretty crazy. Because he goes
Bill
from having his
Murray's hair got
ponytail.
kind of out of control there.
Yeah, once he takes out the ponytail and you know his character's really pissed off and he's got the whole skullet going, it gets kind of weird looking. he
It's
almost
really like long though. Like it's surprisingly a lot longer than it looks from certain angles. But then when he kind of like turns his head a certain way, you're like, oh, he's got like a giant ponytail behind him.
yeah. He's kind of weird.
It is very weird because it's like really straight too, which also doesn't, you know, I mean, usually you don't even see him with much hair at all, except for his perm in Pulp Fiction. But it's like, I don't know, it just kind of doesn't fit his head, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah, and this movie also has the dude from Friday.
Robert Forrester?
I don't think he was in the movie Friday.
No, but Tiny Lester was.
Yes, that's who I'm talking about. With the crazy eye. Or
Yeah.
I don't know if he actually has a crazy eye, but every movie he's in,
Kind of does.
he's accentuating his eye.
Yeah.
He's like the reverse Forrest Whitaker. His eye can never close.
He's awesome, though, because they're like, oh, where did you find him? Oh, I found him. How did you find him? That's my job.
That's what I do.
Find people.
Yeah, that dude's awesome. But speaking of Robert Forster, he got nominated for an Oscar for this movie.
Yes, he did. It was the only Oscar nomination that they got, which was surprising. But again, I think it's more because nobody really, for whatever reason, this just kind of fell behind the radar or whatever.
Yeah, it's really forgotten, but it has a badass cast to it with everybody who's in it. Because you got like Michael Keaton, De Niro, Jackson's in every movie, but like Pam Grier and then Sid Haig and all that. Like, it's a really dope cast, and it's a really good movie. Like, it's one of the slow burns, his early slow burns, so I guess that's kind of forgotten because you think of Pulp Fiction, it's really exciting, it's in your face, there's so much going on. And then you get Kill Bill that followed, which is just chaos. And then Kill Bill 2 is back to going to the kind of like slow route. But then after that, he's so established in his kind of voice that people forget when he was kind of finding that voice as a filmmaker and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
it's just it's his style. The style, like the movie, the way that it flows, the way that it's shot, the way that, you know, again, getting back to the dialogue of when they're sitting on the couch and just like people talking about certain things. When you've got Samuel L. Jackson like showing up at Pam Grier's apartment late at night. And the whole, like, sequence there, you know, she pulls the gun on him first, and then he's like, fuck, calm down, I was just kidding.
I was just messing with you.
Yeah, like, all the back and forths. Again, it's like every movie that he's got. It's just dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. I love it.
Well, and he spends, like, decades writing these scripts.
Yeah.
I think he was saying for, like, Inglourious Bastards was, like, one of the first scripts that he ever started writing, but it's in his mid-career of a film.
Well, he's quite a perfectionist too, and I think that's what usually takes him so long to do certain things, because he'll do it once and then he'll fix it 1,000 times, and he might rewrite stuff, he might do other stuff, but it's like, you know, he always has to have it be perfect, and the work pays off because he's great at what he does.
Yeah, and going back to all the movies that he references, he's probably just like sitting down watching movies trying to figure out what to do, and he's like, ooh, I'll add that. Ooh, I'll add that. Ooh, I'll add that.
Ooh, piece of candy.
Ooh, piece of candy.
Ooh, piece of candy.
Ooh, something to steal from. Which, a lot of people give him shit for that, but, I mean, I get it, especially for, like, Kill Bill. It does take, like, Lady Snowblood and Thriller, A Cruel Picture, and a bunch of other movies and just kind of, like, mash them together into one film. But I kind of like that because you can tell he's a fan. He's not doing it just to rip people off. He's doing it because he's like, hey, I really enjoy these movies and I want other people who are nerds to kind of go back and find these movies.
Yeah, no, I think he's more paying tribute than anything else. I don't think he's stealing anything or anything like that, because they're usually like subtle things, or he's got like something on the wall. Like I watched Death Proof this morning and then went over all the trivia stuff in IMDb, and he had the T-shirt that Kurt Russell wore from Big Trouble in Little China on one of the walls in the first bar or something like that.
That's awesome.
I just think it's cool that he's got all those little nuances that are thrown in there because, again, like what you said, it's for all the nerds like him that nerd out about stuff like that and think it's cool.
Yeah. Which, let's get to Brad's score for Jackie Brown real quick. Looks like he gave it a 10 out of 10. He said, I thought Jackie was going to be a guy, but it was a pretty dope movie. Okay.
I guess I can understand that. I could see, I see it.
Oh, that Bradley. But anyways, let's move on to the movie I remember always wanting to see as a kid. And then when I was eventually allowed to see it, I became a raging psychopath who wanted to murder everybody, according to the media. Kill Bill. Did you ever see that interview that he had about this movie where the lady's bashing it, saying oh, this movie's going to make kids violent? Like, you tell that to a 10-year-old kid who watched it. And I'm sitting there like, I was a 10-year-old kid who watched it, and I was never in a fight in my life.
Yeah, I definitely remember seeing that way back in the day.
Yeah, that shit was funny. And then he's just kind of telling her off oh, I didn't make the movie for you.
Yeah.
She's like,
well, make the movie for a 10-year-old. 10-year-olds probably shouldn't be watching the movie.
But if they have cool parents, the cool parents will take their kids to go see it.
Yeah.
I thought that shit was funny. But I love Kill Bill. It's another one of those shorter movies that he made that just flows so nicely from start to finish. That's just kind of kicks you in the balls from the start. With Uma Thurman showing up or getting shot in the head in that little black and white scene, and then she shows up at Vivica Fox's house, and then they have the knife fight, and the daughter comes home. She's like, "Yeah, you know what happened? That good-for-nothing dog of yours just tore up the place."
She it on the dog.
Yeah.
There's fucking glass everywhere.
She's just sitting there like, okay.
Yeah.
And
then she's just like, go on upstairs now.
Yeah. But like I was saying earlier, this movie kind of takes a bunch of things from movies that I know about. One of my favorite things that he took is from a movie called Eaten Alive. It's a Tobe Hooper movie about a man eating crocodile. And the opening scene of that movie has Robert Englund. And he says, "My name is Buck, and I'm here to fuck." And when I saw this or rewatched it after seeing that, I was like, whoa! I had one of those nerd moments where I was like, he stole that line from this movie. That's awesome.
You say Robert Englund?
Yeah.
I see a Robert Kerman.
No, Robert Englund is in the movie. And he plays the character who says, "My name is Buck, and I'm here to fuck."
In Eaten Alive?
Yeah. From 1976.
Oh, maybe I found a different movie.
Yeah, you need to find the Tobe Hooper one.
Oh, there it is.
Come on. You call yourself a nerd?
Well, coincidentally, the main actor in the other one that I just looked up was also named Robert, so let's calm down. And not everybody's heard of every fucking dumbass movie that you
think
fucking
I would
watch
fuck up
because
Robert
you watch a whole
Englund?
bunch of weird shit about people fucking alligators, and it's just like, what the fuck? Nobody's ever seen this fucking movie before.
You think I would mess up Robert Englund? The man who I met in person and didn't say a single word to.
Yeah, actually I do,
was
because
petrified.
You called Lawrence Fishburne Samuel L. Jackson.
When the hell did I ever do that?
That time that you did it.
Samuel Jackson has all of his eyeballs. I would never mix that up.
Jeez.
I actually
You've seen them in person before.
I actually just mixed up Lawrence Fishburne with, I thought you said, the dude with the lazy eye.
Forrest Whitaker's.
I'm racist.
That's terrible.
Anyways, one of the other references in this movie that I absolutely love is the character of Go-Go, because she was in Battle Royale, which I love Battle Royale. And if you knew Tarantino, you would know that it's one of his favorite movies. And the character who plays Go-Go is in Battle Royale, stabbing a dude in the dick. That's the big scene of hers, is she's stabbing a dude in the dick. And when they're telling Go-Go's backstory in Kill Bill, the dude's hitting on her at the bar, so she stabs him in the dick. And I was like, I get that reference. That's awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah, buddy. Directly taken from Battle Royale. Or homage, I should say. And I thought that was great. I get that reference. I see what he did there.
I like all the music and background noise in this movie. Again, going back to what I just said, but like all the like chimes and different sort of like sequences where he's, zooming in on certain characters, and you just get that like generic tone music in the background, but it just sets everything up where it's just like
and then it instantly goes to kind of the just cartoonish sound effects of them fighting.
Yeah, but it's awesome. Everything, I love how like exaggerated this movie was, basically.
Yeah, he's paying or he's making a great 80s exploitation film, or like 70s exploitation film with this one. It's a virtually senseless movie.
Sure.
Especially if you don't watch it with Volume 2. It just kind of, as its own standalone movie, there's a point to it, obviously. But,
Revenge.
Yeah, nobody cares. He's basically making the movie Thriller a cruel picture. But instead of the woman being raped, she gets shot in the head and her baby's killed. So she thinks. Thriller a Cruel Picture, by the way, is another movie that... what the fuck is her name? The girl with the eye patch in Kill Bill is a reference to... Yeah, Daryl Hannah is a reference to this movie. Thriller Cruel Picture, because she has the eye patch and all that. And funny story about that movie, Christina Lindbergh from Thriller Cruel Picture, I met her at a convention, and I bought a copy of the movie because I hadn't seen it, but I knew all about it because of Kill Bill and all that. And she signed it and everything, and she was really nice about it and all that. And she did like a Q&A afterwards, and she had a very thick Swedish accent. And Dad leans over to me and he's like, for a 60-year-old woman, she still looks really nice. Because she used to do a bunch of modeling in softcore pornos back in the day.
Huh.
So, gotta admit, for a 60-year-old, she didn't look too bad.
Well, good for her.
Yeah.
It's always nice to hear things like that.
Yeah. But it was just kind of weird when you're like a 10-year-old kid and your dad's leaning over saying, I'd tap that.
Yikes.
I'm looking at all the references. They said there's like a reference to Deep Red, which is an Argento film. Might be because of the colors and all that. That's a very colorful movie. Oh, yeah. There's a Lucio Fulci movie called The Psychic. And one of the songs from that movie is used in Kill Bill when Beatrice, Kiddo, is smashing Buck's head in with the door. Which I thought was great. Like the scene when she's going up about to cut his Achilles tendon.
Please stop hitting me.
Yeah. Stop smashing my head in.
Please stop hitting me.
Yeah, I love that shit. And there's actually a Japanese version of Kill Bill that is in full color. They never go to black and white. So it's like an extended scene, and you just see all the prosthetic heads getting chopped off and everything the way it was meant to be seen. Because the only reason why it goes to black and white is because of the MPAA. They were like, this movie's too violent. There's too much blood.
So that's how they were able to tone it down a bit.
Yeah. You see everything still happening, but it's not in the color red. And that's why the MPAA is retarded.
Yes. And I think, too, with the whole continuity of Quentin Tarantino's movies and stuff like that, I hate to kind of jump ahead just a touch, but there's a couple of characters in this movie that show up again, like later on in his other movies that we'll talk about in a bit. It's a little teaser for people to stick around and continue listening.
Please, go on.
Well, we have to wait till we get to that movie.
Which movie are you speaking of?
Death Proof.
Death Proof sucks, though. We're not talking about that one.
Oh my god! You keep saying that because you hate Kurt Russell. Why do you hate Kurt Russell so much?
Because The Thing was a shitty movie, and you know it.
I mean, it wasn't.
Did that really just come out of my mouth?
It wasn't terrible.
Very good. Do you know any more Japanese?
That guy's definitely my favorite character in the first Kill Bill, and then my favorite character in the second Kill Bill is the what is his name?
Gordon Liu?
Yes. Well, he changed his name to like something different, but yeah, that
guy.
No,
the actor's Gordon Liu.
That was, I believe, his name, but he's since changed it.
Pai Mei.
Yes, that guy. But yeah, Sonny Chiba, I think is the actor's name.
Very good.
Very good.
I love that dude.
And he's like yelling at his buddy, like, get the sake. And he's like, oh man, if I was king of this place. He's like, oh, you'd be king, I would be emperor, and you still get the sake.
He was probably the best part of the movie, to be honest. Especially when she's like, I'm looking for a man named Hattori Hanzo. And he's like,
and then the dude drops shit
like
in the back.
Super serious. He's like,
what?
What do you need with... He starts speaking in Japanese, like, I know you know. Stop playing dumb. I love that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. Well, for time's sake, let's go to Brad's score. Looks like he gave it a 10 out of 10. He said this movie was great. It had a lot of great action. The fight sequences were very well choreographed. But it was a shame that Lucy Liu lost the top of her head because she was cool. She was pretty cool.
Jeez. It was a little long-winded there.
Seriously. Surprised
a little unusual.
Surprised his thumbs are working after that one. Texting all that in. You know what I mean?
But it had to have been an email, though, because he never texts back, so...
No, he texts me. Texts me all the time. We text during the fights, and then I'm like, by the way, what'd you think of this movie? And he says, like, 10 out of 10, whatever.
You're a lying sack of crap.
No, just talk to him about...
text back.
Talk to him about the UFC. He'll text back
do that.
Instantly. He actually will text you back in, like, 2 seconds. We talk about fights all the time. It's fun. But anyways, let's go to what could be my personal favorite, Kill Bill Part 2.
Yeah, this is definitely a good movie. I think it's another one that kind of gets overshadowed by Kill Bill Volume 1 and is not as talked about as most of his other movies, but I think that they, even though they're encapsulating the same story, I kind of view them as two completely separate movies.
Well, they're meant to be watched back to back, I get that, but they are tonally completely different films, and Part 2 is such a slow-moving movie that I get why people don't like it. But as we talked about before, with all the dialogue sequences and everything, and really the introduction of David Carradine's character into the story and kind of learning more about Beatrix Kiddo and all that, I just found it all just kind of fascinating. Especially once we get to the end of the movie and Bill's given that Superman speech. And kind of describing how Superman is one of the few superheroes that his alter ego is his perception of how he views the people on Earth and how he thinks that Superman perceives everybody. And you kind of realize, as I had a conversation with a friend of mine from work, and he was kind of giving his take on it, how Bill kind of shows how much of a sociopath he is in that scene because he assumes that Superman's view on humanity is negative, whereas Superman didn't necessarily ever explain how he views people. He just kind of puts on the costume and he's like, hey, I gotta fit in, so I'll be this bumbling dude with glasses and honestly the worst possible disguise in the world, same haircut and everything. But as David Carradine, Bill's character, is explaining, he thinks that Superman looks down on society, which only a sociopath would do. I thought that was quite interesting. Good take.
Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. My other favorite part about this movie is when Beatrix Kiddo, Uma Thurman, finds out that her kid is alive, and the first movie they watch together is Shogun Assassin. Because Shogun Assassins, honestly, just the Lone Wolf and Cub movies are some of my favorite samurai movies. They're fucking amazing. And I love that they just sit down and you hear, when I was little, my father was the greatest samurai in the land. He cut off the heads of 131 lords. I love that shit. I thought that was dope. And that just became my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, that was a good part.
Yeah, yeah.
I like when she finger punches her way out of the box when she gets buried alive by Michael Madsen and the little midget feller.
I just like Pai Mei. And
Pai
how
Mei's
he
great too,
throws
obviously.
his beard to the side and scoffs.
Keeps like that laugh. He just kind of laughs and then he like brushes his beard to the side.
Oh, that dude's the best. Him and my other favorite character is Michael Parks playing Esteban.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, because he dual roles as the sheriff.
Yeah.
And he's Esteban. That guy. That guy's got range. I like that guy.
Well, he's dead. After watching...
That doesn't mean that I don't like him.
Well, he's dead. But after watching this movie, I noticed that I start winking at people and don't realize it. So I kind of took Esteban's kind of character of just like winking halfway through dialogue and just doing that to people. And I think I stole it from this movie. I love that dude, though. May he rest in peace.
He is fantastic.
He's up there in acting heaven with Stephen Hawking and Gary Coleman. Those are the only people that ever made it to acting heaven.
Okay.
Well, Stephen Hawking was faking it his whole life, and that's all I'm saying. Anyways.
Oh,
great movie. I love the 5-finger exploding, or what is it? 5-finger exploding heart technique? What do they call it? Something like that.
Goes my mic. Yeah, I don't remember what they call because I actually didn't rewatch these movies yet. But yeah, 5-finger palm or whatever, the thing that they stole from Kung Fu Hustle, where you read the little pamphlet, then you do the little power hand.
I think you're wrong about that.
I know it's totally a different thing.
But
way different technique.
Where is I about to go?
I do like how it works though. She like does that whole fast sequence of like pushing all those pressure points with her fingers, and then he just kind of stands there. He's like, he taught you how to do that.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah. All right, let me just go walk over here and die.
Well, because he says earlier in the movie, he's like, he'll never teach anybody that technique, and it's like, well, he taught me. Well,
yeah.
Shit, sucks to be you, dude.
Because now you dead.
Yeah, he just like walks off. He's like, I know what's gonna happen.
It's a good way to end the movie, though.
It says that, according to somebody on IMDb, the eye scene when she steps on the eyeball after she rips it out of Daryl Hannah's head is a reference to the movie The Beyond, which I know it's another Lucio Fulci movie, but that dude Fulci has like the equivalent fetish for eyeballs that Tarantino has for feet. So in like the movie Zombie 2, like the woman's head's being pulled towards the splinter and then it goes into her eyeball. In the movie The Beyond, there's like 2 scenes where somebody gets their head pushed into like a protruding nail and it pops their eyeball out. There's another one where a zombie sticks its fingers in somebody's eyes and then like their eyes popping out the side of their socket. Just a bunch of like weird, gross shit. But The Beyond is honestly my favorite movie from Lucio Fulci, and it's one that if you don't mind a movie that's meant to be incoherent and meant to be more like putting you in the middle of something and it's a nightmare, I would definitely recommend looking it up because that movie is amazing.
Yeah, I just wrote that down. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's a lot better than the movie Zombie 2. or Zombie, as you probably know, with the zombie fighting the shark and all that.
Yep.
That's the one that like everybody knows about from Fulci, but he has a lot of great gems that people don't really talk about. And The Beyond is my personal favorite. But there's another movie that's referenced here. It says the sequence during the fight between Elle Driver and the bride, where Elle attempts to kick the bride in the head, is mirrored in the movie Riccio, the story of Ricky. Down to the camera
Which we
angles.
talked about last time.
Yeah, they say down to the camera angles in the slow motion. I'd have to like watch the two again, but that actually makes a lot of sense. When they just kind of like fly and drop kick the person.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was a pretty cool fight scene, like inside the RV.
Yeah.
Because it played on the fact that like there's not a whole bunch of room. They kept trying to like take out their swords. But
Yeah,
they
and it
kept
keeps hitting the
walls
walls
and
and ceilings.
Like, boom, boom.
That shit was funny. Last thing about this one. Did you know that Michael Jai White was in a deleted scene?
I do know that.
And they took it out of the movie.
Which is
A damn shame.
so unfortunate.
It doesn't even need to fit with the story. They could just like end on it, like, oh, really dramatic. Bill got killed. Whole climax in the movie, and then just like roll credits, and then after credits, we just watch her fight Michael Jai White. I would have been fine
Michael
with
Jai
that,
White.
because that dude's awesome.
He is pretty cool.
But anyways, let's move on to
Brad's
Brad's score. Looks like he gave it a 10 out of 10. And he said that the direction of the film was great. He thought that the action sequences were very well choreographed. He said he loved the action, he loved the music, and he said that it was a shame that Lucy Liu got the top of her head cut off, because he really liked her. I think
right.
he sent the same review twice, or maybe he just
seems like it.
watched
Maybe
the two of them together. I'm
maybe
not sure.
maybe he didn't understand the criteria.
Strange.
But anyways,
Yeah, let's move on to your personal favorite, Death Proof.
definitely not my personal favorite, but
Do you know
it's,
what
it's
my
a
personal
decent
favorite?
movie.
What my personal favorite was with Death Proof? Planet Terror. Because that was the better of the
That's a
Grindhouse
different
movies.
movie. Well, yeah, and I think that was one of the things that kind of hurt the movie Death Proof, is that everybody who went to the theaters and watched the two of them back to back, like they were screened, you compare the two. I think that Planet Terror played more to the audience than Death Proof did. But I mean, after rewatching it this morning, I thought, it's not a bad movie, but it's also kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of a little bit dry. I think it's a little boring.
Yeah,
Runs a little long, but
this one was also, because we talked about how he spends like years and decades writing his characters and his stories. This was one of the few ones that was more rushed, and they kind of talked about recently why it was more rushed. It was his apology to Uma Thurman, because she got in a really bad car accident on the set of Kill Bill 2. And there was a whole cover-up story, I guess, about it, where they were trying to hide it for lawsuit reasons and all that, the producers, the Weinsteins. And Tarantino made Death Proof because it's about a guy who drives recklessly and gets people killed, as a way to apologize to her. So he was kind of rushed into it. And I feel like the dialogue in this one, it just doesn't work as well in the second half.
It's still pretty like fluent though.
No, it's
I just
fluent.
think that there wasn't. There really wasn't like a whole lot going on in this movie.
I think its biggest mistake, I love the first half hour, but I just don't care for the last hour, because I didn't really care for those characters as much, because it felt like two completely separate movies just kind of mashed into one. And the first movie was really dope. And I'm not talking about Planet Terror, because I do love that movie. But the first half of Death Proof compared to the second half of Death Proof is just a lot better.
I guess my question is, do you think it would have been better to have him kill off Rose McGowan individually and then come back and find those same three original characters and have that sort of same end sequence?
No.
Or do you think it's just because the end sequence was kind of boring?
I think it's just more so because it was boring. But I get what he was trying to do with the car stunts and everything. Like, the stunts themselves were really dope with Zoe Bell, like, on the front of the hood and everything, because you know that's all real. They're not faking that. They're actually doing that. And all that's really cool. And that's one thing I haven't mentioned yet that I really respect about Tarantino and other filmmakers, like Christopher Nolan and them, who do stuff like this, is they use virtually no visual effects. I don't think Tarantino uses any. And the fact that they're actually doing these stunts and they're filming everything like on the spot, like, hey, the effects have to work for this day, otherwise we have to figure it out. I have to give him a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But with that said, it was just, this one of his movies is just the most boring to me. It's not really interesting other than the first half hour.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's long too.
Yeah, it doesn't flow as nicely as like Reservoir Dogs and
or
Kill
almost
Bill.
2 hours long. But yeah, it's just kind of. But I don't know. I mean, it's watchable. It's definitely a movie that it's not something that I pursue watching. But because of this, I had to give it a rewatch, and yeah,
it's not made
not
poorly
terrible.
by any means.
No.
The characters just aren't as interesting.
Yeah. The characters that are interesting, though, as I was alluding to earlier, are the recurring characters, which I think are the first recurring characters of Quentin Tarantino's movies, but I think that this movie actually takes place maybe prior to.
Richard Pryor's not in this.
Michael Park's character and his son number one are actually in this movie as well, and they play basically the same dudes as they play in Kill Bill.
Interesting.
And there's speculation, but it kind of makes sense, but kind of doesn't. But the guy who goes in to basically rape the unconscious Uma Thurman in Kill Bill plays the guy who is selling the Challenger in Death Proof, and people kind of think that that's the same guy as well, because he does kind of look like the same dude. I mean, obviously it's the same person, but demeanor and stuff like that, the way he laughs, the way he kind of like doesn't really talk. But
do you think that Michael Park's character in From Dusk Till Dawn is the same character as well? Because that'd be kind of interesting.
Well, they do have it has the same name, so it very well could be.
Yeah, Earl
but
McGraw.
That was done by Rodriguez. But
it was written by
Tarantino wrote the movie,
yeah.
so he technically did have he wrote the same characters. So
imagine how that movie would have been if it was directed by Tarantino. That would be a weird.
Well, it was a weird movie.
Yeah, but even weirder, because it would have more to do with feet.
That was one thing about Death Proof. There's a lot of feet in this one.
There's a whole leg going through the air.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Not just
though.
feet. Yeah, that seems really dope. But I like the dialogue sequence in the beginning when Stuntman Mike is introducing himself. And they're like, what do you do? I'm a stuntman.
What's your name?
Stuntman Mike. Are you messing with me? Ask the
How
bartender.
do you know that? Hey, Warren, who is this guy?
Oh, Stuntman Mike. What does he do? He's a stuntman.
He's a stuntman.
That part's kind of dope.
This movie does have one of my favorite kills, though. I think it's got to be like top 10 kill
Kurt
in all
Russell
movies,
getting his face bashed in?
when the tire just kind of rips through the girl's face in the first crash sequence, that was pretty nasty.
Yeah. That whole sequence was really dope. Just showing it like 4 times over.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But anyways, because we're reaching like 6 hours right now.
Yeah, we got 2 really bad movies, or 3 really bad movies to go, so let's wrap this up.
Did you say really bad movies?
Just kidding.
Okay,
all right, Brad,
Brad.
score for Death Proof. Drum roll, please. I'm going to guess something between 7 and 8 out of 10. Go.
You're going to be surprised. He actually gave it a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
He said that...
No freaking way.
Yeah, he said that Stuntman Mike is a really cool character It was a shame, though, that Lucy Liu got the top of her head cut off because I really liked it. Huh.
It's not even the
I
same
think
movie.
he's
He didn't
really.
even watch it. What a dick.
I'm starting to think he might not have, especially if he liked the movie that much.
Yeah,
But
I mean, a 10 out of 10 on Death Proof. I'm starting to think maybe that one wasn't legitimate. Maybe he just.
maybe he
I guess you
mistook
could,
it for
I
Kill
guess you
Bill.
could say he just phoned it in.
I don't get it. So, as you may or may not know, when Grindhouse came out, it was an absolute flop.
Yep.
I remember seeing it in theaters with Brad, actually, and absolutely loving it because just the whole dynamic of it. And I was talking to a kid in school, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to see that Grindhouse movie." And he's like, "Is that the movie where the woman has the wooden leg?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That movie looks stupid." I was like, "Okay, to each their own." And he goes, "I'm going to go see Meet the Spartans." I was like,
Wow.
"What?" He's like, "Yeah, that movie looked hilarious." Like snot was
And then
coming out
you
his nose and
promptly
everything.
stopped talking to that kid ever again.
Funny story about that. I was wearing my Battle Royale t-shirt in high school, and a kid came up to me because the Hunger Games had just come out. And he goes, "Oh, Battle Royale, how do you think that compares to the Hunger Games?" And that kid I actually did stop talking to. But anyways, so Grindhouse was a major flop when it came out. It didn't make like any money at
Well, I
all
think it's hard to get people to sit down.
for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean that's quite a long scenario to go through.
Yeah. Plus, it wasn't advertised very well. The only people that really knew about it were like fans and stuff like that. But Tarantino just faced his first flop because all of his previous movies were huge successes, and so he kind of said like, my next movie has to be my masterpiece, and his next movie is up there with Kill Bill Volume 2 for me. It always flops back and forth, but it's Inglourious Bastards. Not to be confused with Inglourious Bastards from 1978, which is another great movie. But yeah, that's why he ends the movie with Brad Pitt cutting the swastika into Christopher Waltz's head and saying, "I think this might be my masterpiece." Because he was so pissed off that he had a flop that he was like, "I need to make the best movie ever."
And it definitely is a really good movie.
I love this movie because of two scenes in particular, and they're both over 20 minutes long. And they're just two people, or just a few people sitting down and talking at a table. And that's the opening scene with Christopher Waltz and the French guy hiding the Jews, and the bunker sequence when they're trying to discuss their plans and all the German soldiers are there. Those two scenes, uses of dialogue, are amazing.
Yeah, I remember seeing it for the first time in the theaters, and that opening sequence, I was the only one, but I could not stop laughing.
Yeah, when he busts out the pipe,
What
he's like,
the
"Do you mind if I
pipe?
smoke
Just
too?"
like his whole demeanor.
Yeah.
And I kind of said to myself, like, in my head, I'm like, after that first sequence, I was like, okay, I kind of feel like Christoph Waltz is
Christopher
going to
Walken?
be in the running for some type of award. And then after the movie, as I was leaving, I said to the person that I was with, that guy just won the Academy Award. And sure enough, he did. Hands down, one of the best performances I've ever seen in any movie ever.
Yeah, that dude.
He killed it.
That dude just mixes so well with the kind of, I don't want to call it quirky, but just his Tarantino's style of writing. Because it's supposed to be kind of animated and slightly over the top, but kind of drive the story in a very serious way. And his way of just being like, "Oh, this is great. Like, do you mind if we switch to English? To you and your cows, I say, bravo. This milk is amazing." Just all of his like really subtle hand movements, his demeanor and everything just flow to this just
Yeah, it's like everything that he does has a purpose, and you have to just sit there and pay attention to every little thing he does, every way that he enunciates things, and I think that to what you were saying, the way that he bounces in between, the comedic level that the character goes to, and then instantly getting over to like a serious part
But it's
where
not.
he's,
It's
you
not.
know,
It's not like for no purpose. His character's fishing, and you can tell that he's specifically trying to gain information by
yeah,
switching topics, asking random questions, doing all these little things. To,
changing his demeanor, the way
yeah,
that he talks.
like he gets really serious once he knows for a fact that he's hiding Jews, because he's asking him all these random questions. He's gauging his reaction, and all of a sudden he's just like, "You're sheltering enemies of the state? Are they underneath the floorboards?" And right before that, he's talking about how the Germans are like the hawk because they can notice things that nobody else can, and Jews are like rats because they'll hide anywhere to get themselves out of situation. He's like, and that's my job, is to figure out where they're at. By the way, tell me the truth or I'm going to kill your family.
Yeah.
And the dude's just like, okay. He starts crying like, I guess I'll tell you the truth.
Right there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love it. And then later on in the movie, we get introduced to, I think, your favorite actor, and he is with Mike Myers. That's Mr. Michael Fassbender.
He is definitely one of my favorite actors.
I think the only thing missing from this movie was a second Michael Fassbender making out with himself, but I think we can make do with the one that we get. And I love his scene in the bunker that I was alluding to earlier, when they're all meeting up with von Hammerstein. What's her first name? Bridget von Hammerschmark. And they're all just kind of sitting down, and he starts talking, and the one of the German soldiers is like, "You have a very strange accent." It's like, "You realize you're questioning an officer, right?" And he's like, "Sorry, sir, like, you just sound very funny."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, you better go sit down and remember your place." And then the other officer shows up, and he's like, "As we're all officers, please elaborate on who you are." And you just see the look on Fassbender's face. He's just like, fuck.
Well, shit.
What are we supposed to do now?
But at least he had Hugo Stieglitz on his side.
He did. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about.
I'm going to point this gun at your Nazi balls.
Do you know who Hugo Stieglitz is?
It was some type of something, I think.
He's an actor in a movie called, well, two movies that I own. One of them's called Night of a Thousand Cats. But the one that I know Tarantino's more all about is a movie called Nightmare City, directed by Umberto Lenzi. Nightmare City was actually one of the first movies that I can think of that has the running zombie in it. Tom Savini is in talks to remake it, and it was also the direct influence for Planet Terror being made. True story. And it's the sleaziest fucking zombie film you will ever watch.
I'm looking them up right now. There's a lot of foreign films.
Yeah, but Hugo Stiglitz was a real dude, and that's why I love that when they introduce the character, they're like, everybody knows Hugo Stiglitz. And then his name pops up. It's like, look him up. That's what he's trying to say. He's a real dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
Till Schweiger.
that bunker sequence when they're kind of just like playing the games, and it's kind of the same thing as the beginning of the movie, but kind of vice versa, where they're kind of trying to hide who they are and everything from the officer and not give themselves away and start a shootout. And they kind of keep switching in their demeanors, and the officer's trying to gain information, but you can kind of tell that he believes them. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you guys have a great night. Let me order you some drinks. 5 glasses?" And he's like, "No, 3's fine." And he puts up the wrong 3, and it's like, boom, right there. Yep. That's the little thing. I was like, oh, it's so subtle. And you could just see the look on his face. It's like, oh, it's over. And they all know it.
I like when the dude who just had a kid is still alive, and he's got his gun on him, and then Brad Pitt's character comes down and he starts shouting to him. He's like, "Hey, we're in a Mexican standoff. You put your guns down, no guns. I'll come down, no guns." And then he comes down and he's like,
"What the fuck
man, what the fuck you got? What's with the machine gun?" He's like, "No, come get this stupid bitch." And he's like, "No, because we're still in a Mexican standoff." He's like, "No, I've got a gun." You've got a machine gun.
We got
You
grenades.
shoot me. My boys upstairs got grenades. Mexican standoff.
Sound good?
Sound good?
Yeah, the bastard characters are pretty great.
They're awesome.
The scene where Eli Roth is coming out with the baseball bat, the Bear Jew, and he's gonna beat the fuck out of you with a baseball bat.
Fuck out of you with a baseball
Or no, he's gonna beat your ass to death with a bat. He actually said, because he was really excited to be in the movie, as you can kind of tell, like every time he's on screen, he's acting horribly and just being all giddy.
Especially when he's trying to be Italian.
Yeah, arrivederci. But he was saying that before the Bear Jew scene, when he was beating the dude to death with a baseball bat, he was listening to his iPod, trying to get pumped up with like some metal music or something like that, but he accidentally turned on like Hannah Montana or some shit like that. Yeah. And then he was getting really nervous that like Brad Pitt or Tarantino was going to turn the corner and be like, "Are you listening to Hannah Montana?" So he was getting really nervous and he was getting really pumped up by listening to like Hannah Montana before he came out and beat the dude to death with a bat.
And he beat the crap out of him.
That he did.
Cheer.
Great movie. I love it.
Yeah.
After
great.
rewatching
it was it's the first movie I've seen with Daniel, I don't remember how to pronounce his last name, but Daniel Bruhl, the guy who plays the German war hero, Frederick Zoller. Yeah, that guy's awesome. Like, I hope he's in more stuff because he was great in the Captain America movie as the bad guy.
Yep.
And I think that's pretty much the only other thing that I've actually seen him in. I know he's been in other stuff, but yeah, that guy's cool. He's always like creepy. Like he was pretty creepy in this movie too, but he just kind of played that like persistent, "Hey, you want to go out with me? You want to go out with me? Why don't you want to go out with me? I'm a German war hero. You should want to go out with me." "No, I'm going to kill you." And, "Oh, you just shot me in the back, you bitch."
Yeah.
But he said it like German because he's...
Yeah, he was like, "Wie geht's es Ihnen? Wie geht's es Ihnen? Der Zug ist klein." The other thing that I think is great about this movie is how
Eli Roth almost died.
No. How they take the liberty... Oh, yeah, that's true, because they did all the stunts with the fire and everything.
Yeah, they actually really burned that place down, and then it got way too hot, and him and Omar Doom almost died.
Yeah, but, no, it's, something that I just forgot. Shit. Where was I going with this?
That Mike Myers is awesome.
Mike Myers is pretty awesome. In his terrible accent.
That was pretty funny.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.
He just didn't even seem like he was trying. He's like, "I'm going to take all the lines." Tarantino's like, "Hey."
I think he reached out to be in the movie. He like really, really wanted to be in. So I think that was kind of how he got to be a part of it.
It's like, "Okay, but you have to do the lines I say. Like, you have to do them the way I say." "Oh, that's fine. I'll do it." And he just shows up on set like, "Oh, cheerio. Oh, very good. Correctamundo." Which is just terrible accent. Oh my god, I love it. No, but what I was gonna say was the taking the liberty of changing history and just shooting Hitler in the face with a submachine gun. I thought that was hilarious. And then
it was pretty funny, and I like how Christoph Waltz's character was when he's telling the Americans everything, and he's like, "Oh yeah," and then it cuts to the sequence of him like nudging the bomb underneath Hitler's chair. He's like, "And make sure, because that actually happened."
I also really like the director of the film that they're watching. How he starts crying when Hitler's like laughing out loud. He's like, "This is the finest film I've ever seen." He's like, "Thank you, mein Führer."
Thank you so much. And then the chick comes on screen and he's like, "Oh, that's not in the film. That's not what I made."
It's like, what is this? Oh, God. I think the last thing I got to say about this is Gorlami.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
No.
Is that how you say it? You just say bingo.
No, it's the Gorlami. So one more time.
Gorlami.
Gorlami. Very good. What about you? Dominic DeCoco. Again? Dominic DeCoco. Very nice.
Dominic DeCoco. Let me just say it faster.
Dominic DeCoco.
That guy's funny. I like that kid. He was in Death Proof.
You see, you killed my escort, so you guys have to step in. Just act like you're Italian, because Germans can't tell the difference between Italian accents. Arrivederci. Oh, it's so stupid. But anyways, it looks like Brad gave Inglourious Bastards let's look up, a 10 out of 10. He said that Bo Svensson was great. It was good for the time era that it was made, and Fred Williamson was the best part. Oh,
all right.
He's talking about the 1978 one. I think he watched the wrong movie.
Yeah, I don't think Quentin Tarantino directed that one, actually.
It's really cool that he liked it, though. That's kind of dope, because that is still a pretty good movie. I really enjoyed it. The director of it, I believe, is actually in Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards too.
Yes.
Yeah, he's in the
Old Man McGee.
The movie scene.
Is he? Oh yeah, he was one of like the soldiers or something. I think, right?
No, he's like one of the people in the front who like starts screaming like, "There's a fire!" There's a fire!
Okay. So he was in the theater.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because he's like an older guy at this point. He's probably like pushing 80 when they were about to make, or 70 when they made the movie. But anyways, let's move on to the next one. The Django Unchained. Oh shit. I saw this one in theaters when it first came out. And as I was mentioning before, I'm a huge fan of the movie Battle Royale. And they reference Battle Royale in Django Unchained. And I just have to point out that when I saw it in theaters, it was packed because it was an advanced screening for a Tarantino movie. So there was not a single seat open in the entire theater. Everybody wanted to see it. And we're sitting right in the middle, towards the front. And I'm just sitting there pumped up, enjoying the movie. And all of a sudden, they start playing the theme song from Battle Royale. It's like, dun, 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 bow, bow, doo, 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 doo. And I started cheering. I was like, yeah, and I started clapping. But that song starts playing when the KKK shows up. So I realized I'm cheering because it's like, yeah, they're playing the theme song from Battle Royale, but nobody else there is going to know why I'm cheering. They're just going to see some white dude cheering for the KKK.
Oops.
I was like, this looks bad. I'm going to stop cheering.
Should have just been like, I just really like Jonah Hill.
That too. No, it's when they first show up and they're like running around the little cart and everything. They're playing the song from Battle Royale, and I was like, I get that reference. But I had to stop cheering.
That sequence was hilarious.
That was.
I'm not going to say that the bags weren't a good idea. I just think maybe next time
they could have been done better.
We could do them a little bit better. Well, fuck all y'all. Don't ask me and mine for nothing.
My wife spent all night making these fucking masks for you guys, and you're so ungrateful.
I can't see shit. Are we doing the bags or are we not doing the bags?
How about you? Can you see? Not too well.
Not too well. Oh my god.
This movie is basically the epitome of just perfect dialogue.
Yes.
Just the throwaway lines alone of some of the characters just making them look like dinguses is so perfect.
Yeah, especially all like slave owners and KKK people and stuff like that. That's what I think is great.
Or
because
Leonardo
he
DiCaprio
makes fun of the whole movie is like making fun of those people,
yeah,
which is awesome.
That's the point of it. But I love the introduction of Leonardo DiCaprio when he's drinking out of his little coconut chalice and he's just watching the fight going on. They're like, how about $5,000? And he spins around and he's like, I must say, gentlemen, you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. I use that line for everything. Whenever my boss is trying to talk to me, whenever I'm eating cereal in the morning, whenever. I just say that line at least once a day. But another thing that I really like is the opening scene of this movie when we're introduced to James Remar, the guy who played Raiden in
James Remar 1.0.
Remar plays Raiden in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. One of the coolest actors ever made. Also Dexter's dad in the TV show. And he plays...
He's in a bunch of stuff, too.
Yeah, that dude's in everything. And he's in so many movies. He appears in this movie twice.
Twice.
That dude's awesome. But I love that
He's
opening
so great,
scene.
he got killed. They had to bring him back.
To get killed again.
That's true.
I think, yeah, because both of his characters get shot.
Yep.
But yeah, that opening scene when we're introduced to the dentist, Christoph Waltz, and again, he's just kind of playing around with virtually the same character, but different motives. And he eventually frees everybody. And the guy's like, you better not, like, take my brother's clothes. And then he runs over there, kicks the horse, and then steals all the clothes. And then the other slaves come up with a shotgun and just blow his head off. He's like, remember when I gave you that apple? Like, I was really nice to you. And he gets his head blown off, and it's just like a whole bucket of blood, just like, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
I like how we're just talking about the violence of the movie. We're not even talking about
Well,
what the movies
again,
are
it's
about.
like one of those, getting back to Kill Bill Volume 1, the exaggerated violence in this movie.
Oh my god, the shootout at the end.
It's just like splashes of blood every time somebody gets shot.
It was like Squib City. Their squibs were on steroids. They would shoot a body, the dude would die, and then they would hide behind that body, and it would get shot 30 more times.
And the dude wasn't dead yet.
You would
Just
think
like,
that, yeah, he keeps getting shot in the leg. It's like, fuck! Oh my god. And so, Django Unchained, like Inglourious Bastards, is named after a movie from, I think this one came out in the 60s, actually. And it's a movie called Django, and it's starring a guy named Franco Nero. And Franco Nero is in Django Unchained. Do you want to guess what scene he's in?
No.
He's in the scene when when they have the fight going on, when we're introduced to Leonardo DiCaprio. He's the other slave trader who had yeah.
What was he, like French or something like that? It seemed he
Something like
definitely
that.
had an accent.
Yeah, I think that's just his normal accent. But he sits down next to Django, and he's like, "What's your name?" "Django. Can you spell it?" "Django." The D is silent. And he looks at him and he goes, "Oh, I know."
He's like, I know.
Because he played Django. That's why that scene's funny. Do you get it? Do you
I
get
get it now. I sure do. I gets jokes.
I think the other great character of this movie is Samuel Jackson
Yes.
playing the self-hating black man.
He's
And-
the house guy.
Yeah, but he loves his job. He loves
does.
he loves his family, and he loves his job. And he gets so upset when Calvin gets shot that he goes, "No!"
I like the first sequence where he sees Django, and Django's up on the horse. He's like, "What's this motherfucker doing up on a horse?" And he's like, "Now these are our guests, and they're gonna stay in these rooms." He's like, "He's gonna stay in the big house." He's like, "Yo, your daddy gonna be turning over in his grave." He just keeps giving him shit about it. Leonardo DiCaprio is just kind of like, God, sometimes with this dude, just gets to be a little much.
But he ends
Very
up
emotional.
he's the guy that throws everything out the window, like the whole plan and everything. He gives it all away. That dude's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, he ruins it.
Yeah. And that scene when he tells Calvin what's going on, and they know that he's coming for Broomhilda.
They're in like the study or whatever. It's got my favorite quote in the movie. He tells him about it, and he's like, "Thank you, Stephen. You're welcome, Calvin."
Yeah, and he's explaining like, this is how you're supposed to react.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen.
But
You're welcome,
did you know
cowboy.
that Leonardo DiCaprio actually injured his hand during
Yeah,
that
during
scene?
the skull
Yeah,
sequence when
because
he
he
smashes his
smashes his
hand
hand on
down.
a glass. So he's actually rubbing his blood on the actress's face,
Yep.
and they're just like, keep going, keep
I'd be
going.
like, ew, no thanks.
And he still didn't win an Oscar.
Well,
He
poor
didn't even
guy.
get nominated. That's what you get.
Yeah, I
But
think that was unfortunate. That was one of those things. I remember when that came out. Like everybody was like, "Oh, he's totally gonna win. He's totally gonna win." It's like he
no.
didn't even get nominated. That's stupid.
Has Sam Jackson ever gotten an Oscar?
Uh, yeah, no, yes,
No, he's
no.
only been nominated for Pulp Fiction. For a guy that's been in over 3,472 movies, you'd think he'd get a little more recognition.
I think it's a little more than 3,000.
If you look for his known for movies, he's known for 3 Tarantino movies and
And
Snakes on a Plane.
Snakes on a Plane.
That's pretty funny.
He only did that movie if he could say his own dialogue or write his own dialogue. That
We
was awesome.
we have to make sure it fits with the story. Oh, it'll fit. Well, what are you gonna say? I'll wing it.
Motherfucker.
I'm gonna
That's
say
it.
motherfucker.
That's what I'm gonna say.
Have you ever seen the edited version made for TV of Snakes on a Plane?
No.
I'm sick of all these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane. I'm about to open up some freaking windows.
That's kind of funny.
And in Die Hard 2, instead of yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, Bruce Willis says, yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
I think I've heard that one before.
That one's great.
Here's
I
a
love
fun fact about the snakes on a plane. Body count 31 plus 29 snakes, 1 dog, and 1 cat.
it. That's pretty funny, and I don't know why.
Oh, that's freaking hilarious.
So, since he's going to be in the next one, and he's in this one, and he gets shot in the dick, we should talk about Walton Goggins.
Oh, God, it's that poor guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that get shot in the dick in this movie. There's the
A lot of
dude in the
people that get shot in the
bathtub.
dick in a lot of Quentin Tarantino's movies.
No, mostly just this one in particular. There's like 3 people at the end of the movie that all get shot in the dick.
Well, the Nazi guy in the basement got shot in the dick by
Ah,
Hugo
that's true.
Stiglitz.
And the dude got
And
stabbed by Go-Go in Kill Bill.
Go stabbed the dude in the dick.
Touche. Touche.
See, it happens a lot.
Hmm.
But I mean, it was a little bit of foreshadowing when Walt Goggins was basically playing with Django's penis. And
Yeah.
then he's like, "You had your hands up my dick, boom!"
He gets shot in the knee, or in the leg, starts screaming, shot in the dick, and he's like, ah! He just goes so over the fucking top with it. Oh, that dude's great. Good actor. Good actor.
He is.
What else was I going to say? Tom Savini's in the movie.
Yep.
That's kind of dope.
Him and Zoe Bell are trackers.
Yeah. What else is in this movie? I love the scene when Christoph Waltz is talking to Broomhilda when they first meet, and she doesn't know what his intentions are in the room, so she's just kind of playing along, doing her job and all that. And he's like, "I'm going to introduce you to my colleague, but you have to promise me that you won't scream." And she's like, "Okay." And it's Django, and he goes, "What's up, little devil?" And she passes out, and then or a little troublemaker. And then he says, "You silver-tongued devil, you." Like those little one-liners, like I was saying before, just they're so perfect. They just work. They're funny. They're quirky. And we get absolutely none of them in this next movie, The Hateful Eight.
Yeah. Oh,
This
do we
movie's
want to
pretty
do
serious.
Brad's little thing?
Yeah, looks like he gave it a 10 out of 10. And he said, he spelled it Jango, was a great character. And he said that he loves the way the movie went, but he said it was a shame when Lucy Liu's character got the top of her head cut off because he really liked her.
Man, he just cannot seem to let that go.
I don't know why he keeps bringing it up. It's kind of weird. She's not. She's only in the one movie, but whatever. Anyways, let's move on to The Hateful Eight.
The Hateful Eight. I did not rewatch this movie. I didn't have time. Seen it once, and I gotta say the title lives up to it. There were about 8 people, and I didn't really like it.
It's also his 8th movie. Clever how he did that, right?
Very clever.
So when the script got leaked for this movie, I actually downloaded it, and I read it.
Dick.
Yeah, sorry. Not sorry. So I knew going into it that it was going to be a much slower movie. So I was kind of prepared for that, because this is like the complete opposite of Django. It's a 3-hour slow burn movie that's all dialogue, almost no action till the end, or like nothing really happening. And it's just a simple whodunit. Who kind of similar to Reservoir Dogs, actually. It's his only other like whodunit type of movie. And it's a movie that's heavily influenced by The Thing, believe it or not, and also the movie Stagecoach from John Ford, which I thought was pretty dope, because those are both great movies. And one of them has Kurt Russell, who for some reason you hate.
Kurt Russell was in The Thing, wasn't he?
Yeah. He's the main character of The Thing.
Yeah.
And
see, that shows how much I don't hate him, because you, in fact, hate him. Because you hate
debatable.
USA Hockey, and that's why you hate him.
I just hate America that much that I thought Miracle was a shitty movie.
America.
I was rooting for the Russians. I knew how history played out, and I was still rooting for them.
You weren't even born.
I actually had not seen Miracle until about 1.5 years ago. I thought it was a good movie.
That is a terrible thing to admit to.
Good flick. Good flick. Would recommend. But the guy who made it, I still prefer his other movie, Warrior. That was a much better movie.
Warrior.
Yeah, with about the
Warrior?
about the UFC fighters, Nick Nolte and Tom Hardy, and Joel Edgerton.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I actually have not seen that.
What?
I think I bought it somewhere.
That's like one of my favorite movies of the past decade.
Yeah,
that movie's great.
Maybe one of these days I'll watch it.
That and Creed are like the best fighting movies.
Creed was
next
really
to
good.
Rocky. It's really good.
But back to The Hateful Eight.
This is the first movie, as we mentioned before, that was scored. And it was actually scored by a man named Ennio Morricone, who made the soundtrack for The Thing. That's just one of them. He also did it for Once Upon a Time in the West. I think all the Sergio Leone movies, like The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Like, this is a dude that's been making music for films for over 50 years. And he's actually credited for over 500 movies in his career. And Hateful Eight was the first time he ever won an Oscar for music, which I thought was really cool.
Well, he actually, I'm reading right here that he didn't, he said that he wanted to never work with Quentin Tarantino again because of how his music was handled on Django. And then he changed his mind.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it says. I seen it. I just read it.
Damn, imagine being Tarantino trying to pay homage to him. He's just like, fuck you. But he says it in Italian.
It'd be interesting to see how he changed his mind, like how that discussion would have gone. Would have been interesting to be a fly on the wall in that one.
Tarantino said, if you don't do it, I'm going to send you a picture of people's feet every day for the rest of your life.
I have a lot of pictures of people's feet.
Don't even test me. That's how he gets most people to do films for him. He just sends people pictures of feet until they agree to do it.
That would be pretty funny if that were true.
That'd be pretty fucked up, actually.
I would buy that for $1.
Oh, so completely off topic. I was at work, and my boss was trying to get like another scanner sent in, or get the key so we can calibrate our own scanners, because for some reason the company won't send us the calibration code. So I told her that you should tell them that you're going to keep sending in the scanners whenever they get scan lines to them every week until they give you the code. And if that doesn't work, you'll start sending them 2 scanners. And what that was a reference to was Shawshank Redemption. And I was very happy that I could use that in a real world situation and make it work.
Nice.
Yeah. So back to the Hateful Eight. Channing Tatum gets his head blown off, and that's pretty funny.
He sure does. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Also, the Mexican character gets his head blown off too.
It's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
So you're telling me that Minnie entrusted this tavern to you? Did you know that Minnie, back in the day, used to have a sign over that bar over there that used to say, "No dogs and no Mexicans"? And you know what? She eventually changed her mind. She started letting in dogs. So you're telling me that Minnie entrusted her life property to a Mexican? I'm telling you how it is because that's what happened. Are you calling me a liar? Now I am calling you a liar. I love that scene. That's a great
Mexican
scene.
Bob. Yeah.
Another fun fact about this movie, the guitar that Jennifer Jason Leigh is playing, that Kurt Russell decides to grab and smash, which was not in the script, by the way. That guitar was a antique from, I can't remember when, but it was a really old antique guitar worth a couple $100,000. And Kurt Russell decided to improvise and smash it against a wall. So when you see Jennifer Jason Leigh freak out for a second, where she's like, "What?" That's because she knew how expensive that guitar was, and Kurt Russell did not, because nobody told him.
Well, he thought it was the fake because they had like a fake one or something like that.
But it wasn't.
Nope. That's
and
pretty
he
big oops.
done goofed, and people got mad when they found out about that. Like, people were, what people usually do online, they were complaining like, "They should have better things on set to let people know what's going on." And people were just like bitching about it. It's like, well, it made for a funny scene.
Yeah, it makes for a cool story.
Yeah. What can you do?
What can you do?
It happened. Jinx, you owe me
nothing.
You owe me a good movie for his next movie. Boom. Yeah, Tarantino's next movie is apparently about the Manson killings.
Yeah.
It's called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I wonder if that's a reference to the movies Once Upon a Time in America and Once Upon a Time in the West. Guess we'll find out.
We sure will. It's got a pretty good-looking cast coming up there.
Yeah, Michael Madsen, Zoe Bell, Burt Reynolds,
Leo,
apparently.
Brad Pitt, Timothy Olyphant, maybe.
Oh, that's awesome.
Tim Roth, Madsen.
This will be Burt Reynolds' best movie since Boogie Nights.
Since what? Boogie Nights?
Yeah.
I think you mean... Wait for it.
Did you not like Boogie Nights?
Where the hell did that movie go? What is it? I don't remember what it is.
The Hateful Eight? Because he wasn't in that.
Nope. Mystery Alaska. Boom. Nailed it.
That's a pretty good movie. That's directed by the guy that made Austin Powers. That's why Mike Myers is in it.
He's not in Mystery Alaska.
Mike Myers? Yes, he is. He's the announcer.
Oh, God, that's right.
Yeah.
Shit. Oh, my God.
I knew something about a hockey
right.
movie that you didn't know.
I remember that. I remember.
Boom.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
It's been like 7 years since I've seen it.
Nope. It's been
I
like
still
15
remember
since I've seen it.
I just remember from that movie when Kurt Russell is playing the hockey game at the end, and he's trying to drum up the crowd, and he's going, "Are you not entertained?" It's a great scene.
Okay, first of all, you said Kurt Russell. Second of all, it's
God
Russell
damn it,
Crowe.
I did.
Third of all, that's a different fucking movie.
I meant Kurt Russell Crowe.
Oh my God.
Whoops.
You never even seen it.
Are you not entertained?
It'd be kind of funny if he did do that, though.
It would be pretty great. Then he chops off somebody's head with his own skate. I was the only dude on a hockey team that tried to take off his own skate and stab somebody with it.
Took off his own skate and tried to stab somebody.
Whatever.
God. Did you even see The Nice Guys?
I did. It sucked.
It's a good flick.
Yeah,
What?
It was actually pretty good.
That movie's amazing.
Yeah. It's kind of a shame. Nobody saw it. It kind of came and went.
It's because it was too good for people to watch.
Oh, look. Kurt Russell Crowe. His most known for movie is Les Miserables.
Les Miserables. So I think we're pushing the boundaries of how much time we've spent. Do we have a Brad score for the Hateful Eight? Which, if it's not 8 out of 8, I'm going to be pretty disappointed.
You're about to be disappointed because it looked like he gave it a 10 out of 10.
Man.
He said that the action scenes.
Missed.
He said the action scenes were great. The fights were very well choreographed. He loved the music. And he said that it was a shame that Lucy Liu's character got the top of her head cut off because he really liked her.
I
don't even think he watched the movies. I think he just phoned it in and gave the same review and thought we just wouldn't notice. But guess what, Brad? We noticed.
We did.
Kind of hard not to, honestly.
It's a little difficult.
Yeah, when you keep mentioning the one character who's not in all these fucking movies.
She was only in the one for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, longer than 5 minutes. It was
6 minutes.
Yeah, 6.5 or something like that. If I'm getting that right. But yeah, that was
fun.
That was our Tarantino episode. How about for fun, we just review every movie that he acted in besides his own movies. So From Dusk Till Dawn, awesome.
Good.
Little Nicky, amazing.
Very good.
You're all gonna die.
You're all gonna die.
Did you know that he said he would never act in a movie unless it was a character that he really, really wanted to play? And the only movies that he ever really acted in were From Dusk Till Dawn and Little Nicky. So he really wanted to play that role in Little Nicky. Which you gotta admit.
Can't blame him. He was pretty
awesome. That is the best character from that fucking movie. I smell evil afoot. The devil has sent up his spawn to earth, and he is here among us now. Run for your lives, everybody. Love it.
He was pretty good in Sukiyaki Western Django.
Yes, this is true. And I'm surprised that you watched that movie, because I didn't think you watched movies from Japan.
I've got the Steelbook version of it.
Is that awesome. The only Takeshi Miike movie you've seen?
I don't think so.
Because that dude has made over 100 movies, directed full feature films in about 25 years. Do the math on that.
It might be.
He is actually one of my favorite directors. Takeshi Miike is awesome because he doesn't look at himself like an artist. He's like, this is just my job and I enjoy doing it. Stop calling me an artist. He's like, I make movies that I want to make and I don't really care what people think about them. So ever since the 90s, he's been making 3 to 5 movies a year, which is insane. And a lot of them have nothing to do with each other. They're different tonally, stylistically, everything. But he just keeps cranking them out. And he just made his 100th movie, Blade of the Immortal, last year, which is about a samurai who cannot die and regenerates his limbs. So it's basically Deadpool, but a samurai film. And it's fucking nuts. That dude's awesome.
I'll have to look his stuff up.
He also was in Hostel. He is the businessman walking out when their character's going in there. He's like, how is it in there? And the character goes, be sure not to spend all your money. He learned it phonetically because he doesn't know any English. And that's Takeshi Miike.
That's funny.
Another fun
Sweet.
fact about Hostel, in Hostel 2, the big director cameo is Ruggero Deodato, the Italian director who made the movie Cannibal Holocaust, and he is eating a guy in the movie, which was a little nod to Cannibal Holocaust, to have the director of the movie being a cannibal. Clever, isn't it? The more you know.
Sure.
The more you know
Half-
useless information about
battle.
horror films. But anyways, you should really watch the movie. Actually, I won't even tell you what movie it is. When we do a mystery week, I'll just send it to you.
Nice.
And let's just say it has flying milkmen in it. That's how awesome it is. But, as usual, thanks for joining us, everybody. That was our Tarantino episode. For those that stuck around for almost 2 hours, we commend you. You get nothing but respect. Have a good
And
one.
fist bump.
Bye-bye.